Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, Jackson Smith-Njigba to the Seahawks, Quentin Johnston to the Chargers. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to update here with these wide receiver rankings. But you know what I'm going to say. Before we get into it, make sure you're dropping a like on this bad boy. Subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you want to get access to my fantasy football rankings, all my exclusive content, and all the exclusive content of your favorite fantasy football creators, we can all be found on flockfantasy.com. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get 30% off any subscription. And with promo code FLOCK, yours truly will go through and break down your fantasy football team in a podcast. But I think that should be about it. Let's go ahead and let's dive into these wide receiver rankings. Starting off tier 1, we are going to have Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. There's not too much to discuss. These players were elite year 1, elite year 2, and in the case of Jefferson, elite year 3. Like, Jefferson's literally on track to maybe be one of the best wide receivers in NFL history. It is ridiculous what you have with Justin Jefferson. Now, Jordan Addison, of course, coming over. Honestly, it doesn't really impact him in my mind. Jefferson was going to get capped out anyway at like 28, 29% of his team's target share. Like, there were just so many targets available for Minnesota with the departure of Adam Thielen. We knew KJ Osborne wasn't really going to be efficient with the targets that he was seeing. So maybe while the volume goes down just a bit for Justin Jefferson, with the addition of Jordan Addison, the overall offense should improve, where honestly, the efficiency of Minnesota will go up and offset the volume dip. But going over to tier 2, we are going to have the combo of both Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp. I would love your opinion on this, right? Because not only in my rankings am I flipping these guys back and forth, but also in underdog drafts right now, these guys are going back and forth, back and forth. Like, it's really hard to know who's going to go where. I mean, in general, with Tyreek Hill, of course, is a wide receiver that's coming off the monstrous season, where Kupp's coming off an injury-riddled season. So as it stands, I'm just going to go with the momentum. I'll just take Tyreek here. But obviously, 2 years ago, Cooper Kupp literally broke fantasy football and should be fully healthy going into this next season. Now, dropping down to our next tier, this is where things begin to get spread out, because in underdog drafts currently, pretty much every single draft you'll be in, Jefferson goes 1, Chase goes 2. Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp both go about 4 and 5. But here you'll see Stephon Diggs through CeeDee Lamb, this entire tier of guys in underdog drafts, go anywhere from pick about 6 to pick 14. It really is going to depend on the league that you're in with where these guys go. I've been drafting them a lot in the late first and beginning of the second round in current underdog drafts. And of course, if you're not drafting today, fix your life. You can go sign up for Underdog Fantasy today with promo code FLOCK. Available in pretty much, I think, almost every state, like 45 states, everywhere in Canada but Ontario. When you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match to go hop in Best Ball Mania, the $15 million best ball tournament they just launched, literally the biggest fantasy football draft tournament ever. And also, if you are on Underdog already or you sign up today, make sure you go take advantage of the free Jalen Brown bet that we have. I mean, that's going to be available for everybody who used promo code FLOCK, regardless if you've used it 2 years ago or used it right now. Now, diving a little deeper inside this tier with Stephon Diggs at 5, there's not too much to be concerned with, right? I mean, Diggs is still young enough where we're not having to worry about the fall off. Diggs has been consistent over the past 3 years as a wide receiver 1. Diggs is attached to Josh Allen, where we're not really expecting that quarterback play to change at all. And you don't really have another young ascending wide receiver in his same offense, right? Whereas if we're going to go to Philadelphia, you do have Jalen Hurts still as the elite level quarterback to support AJ Brown. But what you maybe have to worry about with AJ Brown that you don't have with Stephon Diggs is you're going to have to worry about both Devonta Smith as well as Dallas Goedert. Now, of course, Devonta Smith was hyper productive at the end of this past year, and it didn't really impact AJ Brown too much, but those were the games that Dallas Goedert missed. So whenever you get all three of these players in the field, I assume that AJ Brown comes back down to earth just a bit. Now, keep in mind, these are rankings for underdog, because I'd imagine that's where 99% of us are drafting right now. So because it is best ball, I'm going to favor the volatility in the massive spike weeks that we get with AJ Brown in that elite level offense. If you were playing in a regular, just full PPR redraft league, I'd actually take Davante Adams over AJ Brown. I'd move Davante Adams up to 6. The reason I'm going to have Adams down here in underdog drafts is you're just not going to get the same weekly elite level ceiling from the Las Vegas Raiders offense that you're going to have from the Philadelphia Eagles, but the target volume should be more consistent for Davante Adams as he has less target competition in his overall offense. And then with CeeDee Lamb at 8, honestly, if you wanted to make an argument to move him all the way up to here to 5, with the Dallas Cowboys now fully embracing that he is an alpha wide receiver 1 with his target share, I'm fine if you want to do it. Obviously, this is the ascending asset where all these other guys are already established. That's why we have this as a tier list, okay? Not just flat out rankings. You can rank these guys in these tiers almost any way that you want. And going over to our next tier of players, we're going to have Garrett Wilson off at 9. Last time we did these rankings, Garrett Wilson was behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, but now that you officially have Aaron Rodgers over to the New York Jets, I think you have to be extremely excited. Wilson was an elite level prospect. He was phenomenal year 1. And now that you have the biggest quarterback upgrade in the NFL going from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers, I mean, obviously he's top 10 in your rankings now. Now going over to our next guy, we're going to be looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown here at 10. With St. Brown, you have no Jameson Williams. With St. Brown, you get a ton of target volume as well. I mean, this is a wide receiver that looked like he could have been last year's Cooper Kupp if it wasn't for the injury. Let me know what you think. I'm thinking maybe the Detroit Lions come back down to earth just a little bit with their overall scoring. It's so difficult to have him, any higher when you have phenomenal names above him, but he is great in his own right. Now, 11, we're going to have Jalen Waddle, our most drafted wide receiver last year in fantasy football drafts when he was going in round 4. Sadly, we're not going to be able to get him there again this year. You have to draft him in the second round. I'm fine doing so. If you're looking at the games where Tua was fully healthy and not leaving early with an injury, Jalen Waddle dominated and was a top 10 wide receiver from a points per game perspective, even with Tyreek Hill being at number 1 overall. So, I think that Tua is underrated. I think that Waddle and Hill are elite level talents, and they're going to condense the targets so much between these two guys. You're not really having to worry about a wide receiver 3 siphoning anything off. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we are going to go Chris Olave at 12. With Olave, I kind of want to have him the tier above. The issue is I just don't think his quarterback play is going to be as good as what we have with the other guys, right? I don't think Derek Carr is as good as Aaron Rodgers, as good as Tua. Even as good as Jared Goff at this point. With Olave, still an incredible player in his own right. If you're going to go through and look at the amount of wide receivers that dominated to the extent of Chris Olave in their respective rookie seasons, only guys that were really wide receiver 1s in year 2, like the natural trajectory that he is on, Olave should be a wide receiver 1 this next season. And you do get a quarterback upgrade going from Dalton to Carr, but just not great quarterback play. Now, Higgins will have phenomenal quarterback play, very similar to what we have with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, right? It's going to be a great offense overall. Great wide receiver talents. However, the difference in Cincinnati, in my mind, compared to Miami, is Cincinnati at least has a respectable wide receiver 3. They at least have a respectable tight end where maybe the targets can be spread out a little bit more than what you have in Miami. Now, our next guy, Devonta Smith at 14, another wide receiver 2 in his offense. Same thing that we are going to say here with Devonta Smith in comparison to Jalen Waddle. While yes, Smith is arguably just as good of a talent, if not a little bit better, playing in a better offense, with Devonta Smith, not only do you have to worry about A.J. Brown, where Waddle has to worry about Tyreek Hill, but you're also going to have Dallas Goedert, where just in Miami, you don't have to deal with that third option. Now, dropping out a tier, we are going to have DK Metcalf at 15. Now, I believe Jackson Smith-Njigba will take more away from Tyler Lockett than he will with DK Metcalf, and that's why Metcalf's not plummeting in these rankings for us, right? We had Metcalf in the tier of guys like Olave, Higgins, Devonta Smith before they decided to go grab Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'm just going to move him a tier down, but still kind of in this 15 range, because in my mind, 16, you see a far drop off. You have Deebo Samuel there. The usage has changed with Deebo Samuel. It's going to be so unpredictable going into this next season. We don't really know who the quarterback's going to be between Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. For the case of Deebo Samuel, you'd be hoping that it's actually Brock Purdy because there maybe the passing volume's a little bit higher. You don't have a quarterback monopolizing rushing touchdowns. You don't have a quarterback monopolizing just overall fantasy points with rushing yards as well, which is what you would get from Trey Lance. Currently, if I had to bet money, I'm going with Trey Lance as the starting quarterback for the 49ers, but I've been wrong again with that stance. Now, going over to 17, we are going to have Calvin Ridley. Ridley, last time we saw him fully healthy, excluding the season where he left early due to mental health, he was a top 5 wide receiver from a points per game standpoint. Now, of course, that was back in 2020. That was so long ago at this point. So it's difficult to say, okay, Calvin Ridley was the top 5 wide receiver then, so he's the top 5 wide receiver now. It doesn't work like that. He will have elite quarterback play. I think he has a lot of upside. We just have to be realistic in that this isn't someone that we've seen in 2-3 years now at that elite level play. Now, Amari Cooper at 18 is going to be in a pretty damn good spot where you have Deshaun Watson through the course of the entire offseason training with Amari Cooper. Y'all know I thought Deshaun Watson was going to be elite coming in last season because historically speaking, Deshaun Watson is an elite level quarterback. Historically speaking, you're used to Deshaun Watson going through and just dominating both from a fantasy football and a real life standpoint. I think maybe we are just a little too optimistic with Deshaun last year because he didn't really get to train with the team. They had everything going through Jacoby Brissett, and then they just threw him in randomly with the last 6 games of the season. I think now with the full offseason of Deshaun Watson pairing up with this team's coaching staff, with this team's wide receiver core, such as Amari Cooper, where Amari Cooper is clearly the wide receiver one in this offense, I think you should be excited about Amari. I mean, this is about where he was going in last year's drafts, and his situation's better this season. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to have Christian Watson at 19. I really don't know what to expect with Christian Watson, if I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, if we're going to be looking at Watson, it's a wide receiver that was hyper efficient with his targets last year. He was at the very top of the NFL in his touchdown rate, which historically speaking is extremely volatile. Historically speaking, if you are going through and chasing touchdowns, you're going to be making a losing bet. And instead, we should be trying to chase targets and chase volume. With that being said, Watson was a very strong prospect coming out. He was an elite level athlete, and he is the clear bona fide wide receiver one with his depth chart. I personally don't know what to expect with Jordan Love. If Jordan Love comes in and gives us above average quarterback play, I think Christian Watson is better than the wide receiver 19. If Jordan Love comes in and gives us below average quarterback play, I think Christian Watson could fall a decent amount from here. Let me know what you think with Jordan Love, because he's just someone I have no idea what to do with. Now, 20, we are going to have Jerry Jeudy. I know this is a little aggressive with Jerry Jeudy, right? But y'all know, I mean, I have been anti-Courtland Sutton for the longest time. I don't know why people last year, the year before were giving me crap because I was telling you the truth, telling you that Courtland Sutton was not good at football, that he's never been a top 24 wide receiver from a points per game perspective before. Yeah, I think Jerry Jeudy's the bona fide alpha wide receiver one here. I think that Sean Payton comes in and improves the overall offense for the Denver Broncos. Still don't have too much faith in Denver, but they really can't be worse than what they were last year. And Jerry Jeudy, I mean, clearly cemented that he is the wide receiver one in this offense and still incredibly young. I mean, you're looking at Jerry Jeudy as someone that's like younger than Kenny Pickett. Now, going over to our next guy, we're going to have DeAndre Hopkins at 21. I don't know what's going on. I would have assumed Hopkins would have been traded by now, but as it stands, looks like DeAndre Hopkins may be an Arizona Cardinal this next year. And if DeAndre Hopkins is an Arizona Cardinal this next season, I'm going to have to lower him down our rankings. Now, of course, he was phenomenal when he came back from suspension last season, but Kyler Murray is going to miss the majority of this next year. If Kyler Murray is missing the majority of this next season, in the case of DeAndre Hopkins, I think you have to be a little nervous in that you're going to have a very bad quarterback play. Hopkins clearly doesn't want to be in Arizona. And if we add on the fact that, hell, he is just another year older, this was a wide receiver drafted in 2013, there's some very real reasons to be concerned. Now, going over to our next guy, we're going to be looking at DJ Moore. With DJ Moore, this is a wide receiver that I understand a lot of people are saying Justin Fields is the best quarterback he's ever played with. The Chicago Bears were the lowest volume passing offense in terms of their passing yards on a per game standpoint in the entire NFL since, I believe, 2008, around that time. Over a decade, the Chicago Bears have been the worst passing offense in the NFL this past season. Now, I think DJ Moore helps change that. I think that DJ Moore will be a significant improvement upon what Justin Fields was operating with previous. And I do expect the Chicago Bears to be the most improved offense in the entire NFL this next season. But while the Chicago Bears will be the most improved offense in the entire NFL this next season, they're going to go from being historically one of the worst offenses in NFL history to a pretty bad offense, okay? I mean, they can improve a ton and still be very bad. You have Justin Fields monopolizing points in this offense with rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. it's hard to be too excited about the situation for DJ Moore. Now, our next guy, Mike Williams, is having to take a hit, right? I mean, you have Quentin Johnston coming over. Johnston, a great wide receiver prospect. I mean, he checks the big boxes, right? I mean, he breaks out as a freshman. He dominates as a sophomore. He declares as a junior. He goes round 1 of the NFL draft. Historically, if you check those 4 boxes, it is very difficult to find examples of wide receivers that actually go through and bust at the NFL level. So, I mean, I'm excited about Johnston. I still think that Mike Williams is the wide receiver 1 here. Y'all know last year I actually thought it was Keenan Allen, but now Keenan Allen, another year older. I mean, the man was drafted in 2013. We have to transition to Big Mike. Now, going over to 24, we are going to have Drake London. Very similar to DJ Moore. I mean, honestly, maybe I can make an argument to have DJ Moore behind Drake London. And I think London's a better wide receiver at this point of their respective NFL careers. And they both have the same issues. They're both going to be playing in some of the lowest volume passing attacks in the entire NFL. Now, the difference between London and DJ Moore, and while I'll have DJ Moore ahead of Drake London for now, even if they have those same concerns, is with Drake London, you have to worry about Kyle Pitts. With DJ Moore, what? You have to worry about Cole Kmet? So, I mean, that's why we're going to go ahead and take Moore over London, even though we're not super confident with it. Now, going over to our next tier, we're going to be looking at Terry McLaurin, 25. I don't know why I was convincing myself otherwise, but I was convinced that somehow you were going to get a different quarterback in Washington than what you have with Sam Howell. I did not believe Sam Howell would end up being the starting quarterback for the Washington Commanders when everything was all said and done. However, it is now May. We are past the NFL draft. We are past free agency. Sam Howell looks like he is going to be that guy. So, yeah, I mean, I just at this point have to go through and say, I guess we have bad quarterback play. We have Jahan Dotson going into year 2. He's a great talent, but I mean, he's just been such a bad situation his entire NFL career. Now, going over to our next guy, we're going to have Michael Pittman, 26. I think Anthony Richardson does improve the overall offense in Indianapolis, but I think Anthony Richardson's going to vulture a lot of these points himself with what he can do running the ball. And then last but not least, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 27. I am going to try to convince myself to move JSN up these rankings. If we rank Jackson Smith-Njigba here, you are still going to be able to draft him in a ton of underdog drafts according to his ADP. So I'm kind of fine ranking him here, saying we'll be slightly ahead of consensus on him. Obviously, it's just difficult rookie wide receiver going to a team that has 2 established veterans that are very good and not a great quarterback. I mean, even if Geno Smith is decent, he's not phenomenal. Let me know what you think. I mean, Jackson Smith-Njigba is someone I really want to be rooting for. It's just difficult to get him much higher than this. But I think that's all I have for y'all. Again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. As always, if you want to get my rankings, those can be found on flockfantasy.com. As always, if you want to get in a fantasy football draft, you can do that on Underdog Fantasy. Both links in the description. Both sites. Use promo code FLOCK. Get hooked up with some awesome perks. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much. Really do appreciate you and really hope you have a great day.